Welcome to Inside the Corner Office, a podcast where you will be taken behind the scenes of the daily life of a CEO. I'm Thomas Buberl, CEO of AXA. In each episode of this podcast, we will delve into a specific aspect of this role. You will see that making decisions from an office is definitely not what this job is all about. For every topic, we'll be joined by a leader of a major organization. I hope you will enjoy these discussions. Tune in and take a seat at the table. We are inside the corner office. Hello Arthur, it's great to be with you today.
Hi Thomas, bonjour. Ravi d'être avec toi. I know we're going to speak in English, but
yes.
A bit of French.
Yes, well, it's very different now. We have to speak English together. But I'm very glad that you are here in this new episode, Inside the Corner Office. We'll be talking about you today and about your amazing journey at Publicis, around how you arrived there, what really makes Publicis strong. You've been very bold around Move, Epsilon. You have a very good culture that you have really well developed. But we also want to talk you as a leader because your passion, your resilience has really helped you to get where you are today, the number one player in the world. And it was not obvious when you started that you would get there. Do you remember the first time when we met?
I'm sure you won't remember, actually.
I actually do not remember, I have to confess.
There is the official encounter, which was when you were taking your job and Henri organized a meeting for us to meet. But there were one time before when you were still in Germany, where I came and presented some work here. You were there. This you won't remember because I was part of a big team and I was the ad guy. So who cares about the ad guy? But then I guess we have learned to know each other very well and becomes friends. So it seems like a long time ago.
Exactly. The first meeting doesn't really matter anymore, does it? Exactly.
No.
Exactly. What was striking in the first meeting that we had together with Henri and your predecessor, Maurice Lévy, is that at the time we were facing a similar challenge.
Oh, yeah.
How to succeed an iconic leader. You have succeeded in doing it. What was your secret?
I think I have tried to follow your path, roughly. No, I mean, first of all, you're right. I think that we both had big shoes to fill. And I think that maybe one of the points that make us know each other better fast because we were facing the same kind of challenge. I mean, you have to add the one that you were coming in France. But with Maurice, it's a bit what I'm trying to do with Publicis overall, which is I think that as Henri, they have done great things on their own business. Maurice has built Publicis. I mean, our founder, Marcel Bestin-Blanchet, started Publicis 100 years ago, but really the one that brought us from a couple of thousand people to 70,000 at the time was Maurice. And so, first of all, I have always tried to learn from him. And by the way, and that was a big difference with you, I guess, is that when I went into the board for the interview for the job as a CEO, Elisabeth Badinter, who was our chairman at the time, said, Arthur, do you really want this job? Which is not an easy question, and I know we're going to come back to that. I don't know that. Knowing what I know, I don't know if I would have said yes, but I did say yes. But I actually, at the time, put two conditions. I said, condition number one, we've been spending billions in acquisition because Maurice has been building the group through acquisition. I said, I want to be able to spend millions in people. I want to improve the quality of our people. I want to bring new talent. I want to retain the best. So I said, yes. And I said, second condition, I need Maurice to stay because I knew at the time that I could be a good account executive. I think that I understand when the market is going, but I had no idea about everything that was corporate, dealing with the financial community, dealing with the board. I said, so if Maurice is staying, I might be the good CEO. If he's not staying, I won't, which is a big difference with you. They said yes, and that's why I took the job. And then I have tried to learn from him. I've been discussing about everything all the time. We are more a duo than anything else. And I think we have found our pace between respecting what he has built, but also taking risk that he always supported me on.
What were the difficult moments in this journey together?
With Maurice, never, honestly, for two reasons. Reason number one is as we over-communicate, there is never a bad news on one side that won't be known by the other. And second, honestly, our destiny were linked and are linked. And the fact that we are in the same boat all the time means that honestly, we never had a tough time. And when we have tough discussion, which happen, it's behind closed door. So I had a lot of very difficult moments on my journey, and I will be very happy to come back on that. But the least we can say is that Maurice has always been incredibly supportive.
And I guess your secret is constant talking, constant information, making sure that you are in sync together and no surprises.
And you know, I came at Publicis in 2006, okay? Maurice was supposed to leave a couple of years later. He stayed for 11 years
It was
more.
a couple of years later.
It was like a decade later. And during all of that time, I have been taking all the job that he had in the past. I started with Publicis Conseil as a CEO, which is, by the way, when I had the chance to win AXA at that time. It was in 2008, I guess. Then I took Europe. I was in charge of Germany and all of this. Then I took the world for Publicis Worldwide, then all of the creative brand, then the group, which is exactly what Maurice did over the last 30 years. And so the good news is we have been always working together. And you know, it's fun what you say, because he was worried, as was the board, about how we're going to live together. And I always say, this is not going to be a problem because we've been working closely together for the last 10 years. And by the way, to come back to your question, we are talking a couple of times a week, exchanging by email every day, and meeting once a week. I mean, my meeting with him is just after you this afternoon. Normally, we're supposed to meet on Friday morning, but I say, Maurice, today I've got something way more important. I'm being interviewed by Thomas.
Oh, dear. You talked about investing in people. What's quite interesting is when I come into the Publicis building, I feel like coming into a big family. So you have a great culture of a big family, yet this is not at the expense of being very clear and also very pushy in achieving results. How did that culture evolve? And also, what did you change or how did you evolve it after Maurice?
We are a culture where we are definitely people first. I mean, we are a business that is people first. The only thing we sell is people. We sell creativity, intelligence, knowledge of a market. We sell people. And so there is nothing more important than our people. We have demonstrated that during COVID. We have demonstrated that when times were tough. And we have always been there for them. On the other hand, we are a culture that is very demanding in terms of performance and innovation. And as you said, the difficulties and the challenge, but also the excitement, is to be able to embark everyone into what is sometimes a very challenging journey. And this is what I've tried to do since I took my job. I communicate a lot through video, which I know you do too. I'm doing town halls most of the time. And by the way, what happened with COVID helped us a lot. To be clear, during COVID, I was doing a town hall with everyone every Friday. And so they could ask their question, and we took a pace that now, of course, the lapse is longer. And so it's really about making people understand that in an industry like ours, which is the same for yours, things are changing so fast that you have to lead the change if you don't want to be changed. But the biggest question then is how can people understand what you're doing? How can they feel that they are concerned about it? That there is something for them individually to take out of it, which is where I spend a good part of my time, honestly.
Yeah, I remember we spoke a lot during COVID, and I was always quite amazed how quickly you reacted, and also you took courageous decisions on not firing people, all that kind of stuff, very early on. And I think being transparent about it and talking to your colleagues all the time is extremely important.
I've been lucky on that. I mean, I'm not going to say I've been lucky thanks to COVID, but in a way I've been, which is I took my job in later than you did. I took my job in 2017. It has been incredibly difficult for the first years because I decided to make some pretty strong bets. We created with Maurice before something called the Power of One, which was saying no silos, no solos, and no bozos. And Maurice created that like in 2014, but I decided to accelerate on that. And by the way, create things like the country model, where all of our agency will be under one P&L and one leader, which is Agathe in this case. We did a lot of things like this that the good people took well, but the less good people that were used to manage by P&L took pretty badly. And so it was very difficult for me to be respected in this environment just coming into the job. The second thing I did, and again, thanks to you for that, because you did it before me and you encouraged me to do it, is I made a big acquisition with Epsilon, which the financial market hated, because instead of buying back share, we put 5 billion on the table, which was a lot of money for us to make this big transformative acquisition on data. And again, everyone started to challenge me. And I took a couple of initiatives like this one, which means that people in the different agencies and different countries are saying, what is this guy that is doing so many things at the same time, that is changing stuff, that doesn't have great results, that doesn't know exactly what he's doing? And so I was in a very, very tough spot when COVID hit. By the way, our stock was lower than ever.
Which is not the case anymore.
No,
it's higher.
But I mean, I took my job. Market cap was roughly 12 billion. Okay, before COVID, it was already at 7. It tells you how tough it was. And then with COVID, it went at 4. Now we're at 27. So at least we came back strong. But all of this to come back to your point, which is COVID gave me the opportunity to show how much the group could care and do for everyone. Yeah. And that completely changed the perception internally that gave us an incredible dynamic externally.
We'll come back to Epsilon in a minute again, but I think one of your absolute recipes for success is when I see you in a meeting and I wouldn't know who you are, I wouldn't know that you were the CEO. So you are the CEO, but you're not the CEO. And I think that also probably has helped you in your relationship with Maurice. Tell me a bit about your style, because it's quite amazing to see that you are not the traditional CEO stamping your statue and so on. You are part of the team. Well, what's your secret?
Now that the stock is all-time high, I can't say that. But normally when I was presenting myself into a meeting with people that I never met and with clients and stuff like that in big rooms, I was always saying, I'm the CEO of Publicis, but actually I'm a very bad CEO. You just have to look at my stock. But I'm a great account executive, which I think it's a case. I never saw myself as a CEO, honestly. I think that my board is here to support me and not the opposite. And the only thing that matter for me is my people and my clients. And hopefully you're experiencing that with us, which is we are a client-focused organization. My real bosses are my people and my clients. I am way more under stress when I'm meeting my top talent team to make sure that they feel that they are working for the right leader than when I'm meeting my board. And to come back to your question, I think the reason why we are being successful today is that I got around me, starting with Agathe, that you know well, people that think like me. We are a tiny business. I mean, compared to you guys, we are a small business. We are a service business. And so you don't need to play the CEO. You need to think very hard about what is the future of your industry, what kind of positive impact it could have on your clients, and how you give opportunity to grow to your talent. That's it. The rest, I can outsource it to my CFO and to Maurice, by the way. But for many, many people, Maurice still, if you ask in France who's the CEO of Publicis, they will tell you Maurice, which is great. I've got no problem with that.
But also that's another part of your complementarity. You have picked a spot where you wouldn't walk on his feet. And I think that's another of your success recipes. You found a good coexistence because you were doing the same thing.
Yeah, and it's pretty natural because I never wanted to be the CEO of this company. And this was public, by the way, but I can't say publicly. I never looked to be the CEO ever. I came to Publicis because I wanted to be in a French company that has international ambition. I was with the American Omnicom for 10 years, pretty successful. And then Maurice called me one day. And, there were a lot of people that were like, you can't leave Omnicom. I was Agency of the Year in Cannes, was doing very well. And I met Maurice, who offered me the job. And I remember I went to see my mother that passed away a year ago. And I said, look, I've got this offer from Maurice Lévy at Publicis. All of my friends are telling me, you should stay where you are. You're doing so well. Where are you going to go to Publicis? At the time, Omnicom was way bigger than Publicis. And my mother said something that I loved. She said, Arthur, if you don't go to Publicis, you need to change industry. And I think that was right. Because when you're French, when you have ambition for your country and for companies, being in a company that has been founded by someone so great like Marcel Bleustein-Blanchet, where the chairman was Elisabeth Beninter, and work for Maurice Lévy, that is one of the biggest entrepreneurs.
You can't get better.
And so I went, but never thinking that I will replace Maurice. Thinking that hopefully I will have an international job. And now we found ourselves in a position where Maurice, I won't give his age, but he has aged a bit, but has more energy than me, honestly, way more energy than me. He's doing a fantastic job in France with Agathe. He's helping me a lot in the US with big clients. And as you said, we found our spots to make it well. And I think it's true. I guess it's the same for you with Antoine. As long as you find your position.
Exactly. You need to make it work.
Yeah,
because it's a team, a tandem, and not competition. Exactly. Let's talk about the US again, and go back to Epsilon. I mean, this for me was your big milestone, your acte fondateur, as we say in French, where you took a big risk, but it paid off. I mean, up to the end of last week, I think you were the biggest agency in the US. This week, something happened with the big merger of one of your previous employers that probably will have to challenge you more to get back to your number one position. How did you make this choice? Because it's quite a bold one.
Again, it's a couple of things. First, we knew, and I knew, that it was in 2018, that the future of our industry was personalization at scale. We didn't know at the time how much the rise of AI will change everything, but we knew personalization at scale, that was, by the way, fueled by AI, not Gen AI, but AI, will be the future. We felt that if we want to go to our next century, which is happening next year, ready to continue to lead the change, we had only one opportunity in the market, which was this data company called Epsilon, which was at the time, the price that we paid was half of our market cap at a moment where our performance was not great and where investor was saying, you did a big investment with Sapient that is not paying off now. Don't spend your cash. Give it back to us. And the first reason why we did it is because we knew that this is what our client will need for the future. And when you know your client so well, which honestly, this is my case, and you know what they need for the future, and by the way, you share with them what they want, it felt that we had to do this move. Now, what I think is maybe more interesting for you and for whoever is listening is it comes back to the role of a board.
Exactly. How did that process happen? Did you just have the inclination and you pushed it through?
So first of all, the idea came from Maurice. The support came from Maurice, which was the chairman of the board, which makes things easier because it was not the right time for us to do this acquisition. Yeah. We were pretty weak, challenged by the market, and the least that they were expecting from us is to do this kind of thing. But again, the role of a board for me is very simple. A board only has to do two things. Support the CEO until he fires him and be there when there is big move to do. And that was the case. And so I remember when I get into the board meeting, we explained what could be the deal and how it could work. And then I said, look, I asked a banker. That was in the room. I said, Mr. Banker, what do you think will be the market reaction to this acquisition? He said, I predict minus 20%. We just did minus 15 with Q4 a couple of days before. So it's to tell you that minus 15, minus 20. I said, okay, thank you for saying that. And then I looked at the board and I said, look, there is only two alternatives here. Either you think that Publicis should be sold in the coming year and we should not do this deal, or you think that Publicis is here for the long run and will stay an independent company and we have no other alternative than doing this acquisition. They said yes in maybe 30 seconds, not even a question.
And what happened afterwards? Was it minus 20?
And after, it was a nightmare.
Because the moment after is much more important. Saying yes to a transaction is easy, but when the share price drops, when difficulties arise, that's mad.
So the board has been very supportive all the way. Now, coming back to me, actually, we did a good job in explaining the deal. And the market actually went up pretty significantly. And if I were encouraging, the stock went up and they understood what we were doing. I mean, the good news is we are not that bad at storytelling. So we told a good story.
I should hope so, yeah.
The problem was that the underlying performance of the group was still very weak. And so when you mix a poor performance with such a use of cash for an asset that was unproven at the time, we went down. And I found myself at the end of 2019 with the financial market that was shorting us, the press that was trashing us, and all of our competitors that were mocking us every time they could. And honestly, I never felt so confident at that time. Because I was
what gave you the confidence? Because if everything around you is not pointing in that direction, and plus your employees probably also say, listen, Arthur, what are you doing there? How did you remain resilient?
Two things. First, I had full support from Maurice and the board. But second, and even more importantly, honestly, during all of this period that was so tough, we haven't lost one client, not one. And actually, we were number one in new business. So exactly at the same time where I had to do a profit warning in Q3 and that Bob Iger decided that he will launch Disney Plus with Publicis because we were the only one to have the right asset to be successful. And by the way, he has been successful at the time. So on one side, I had those investors that honestly doesn't understand our industry. Hopefully they won't listen. The press that is looking for something bad to have a couple of clicks and a competitor that can hammer us. But on the other hand, every client was understanding what we were doing and new prospect was decided to join. And so I knew that if we had that with us, as long as we can keep our talent in the journey, which was not easy, we were well. And it started to pick up 1 year later. And now for the last 5 years, we have been outperforming the market with, as you said, the market cap today that was equal to Omnicom plus WPP and now is equal to Omnicom plus IPG if the deal goes through,
exactly.
which we don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So if you look a little bit forward, how do you imagine the future now? I mean, you've done a big acquisition. It has worked well. Probably your board will say, or your team will say, listen, Arthur, how do you envision the next big move without going into detail what it is? But, how do you envision it?
No, I can tell you. Do you know Jerry Garcia? Mm-hmm. So Jerry Garcia is a leader of the Grateful Dead. Jerry Garcia said something that has been a mantra for me for all of my life. He said the important is not to be the best at what you do. The important is to be the only one. It took me time to understand that because when I was young, I wanted to be the best. And then I realized that being the best is not enough because there is ups and downs.
Yeah, and quickly somebody else can become better,
Exactly. You need to be the only one. And our ambition, by the way, hasn't changed in the last 2 or 3 years now we will finish the year as number one, the largest holding company. And by the way, we will be the largest next year also, whatever happens with the deal. But, and I said it before we heard the news between IPG, we don't care about being number one. What we want is to create a category of one. And everything we are doing at the moment is making sure that what we build is unique. Because I want every of my clients to feel that there is only one place where they can truly transform their marketing model to accelerate their growth and reducing their cost and take a leadership or sustain a leadership on their own market. It's with Publicis. And so everything we're doing is based on that. We are bringing the best talent in the market wherever they sit because we want to have an unfair share of big talent. We are making acquisition in social, in data, in commerce that make our model unique, not only compared to our direct competitors, but to the platform like Meta or Google, like the system integrator like Accenture. We are building something that is truly unique. Yeah. And then the question becomes, do you want to be part of that or not? Because not all the clients want that. But the client that deeply, truly wants to transform, we have an offer today and we're going to further accelerate in this direction. And by the way, this is why this merger is such, or acquisition is such a blessing for us. Yeah. Because it's going to distance ourselves even more from the traditional market.
Exactly. But this also means that you need different talents. You need to recruit a lot. You said you put the effort on people. How do you maintain your culture? Because, this family culture with a tough and demanding style has been very successful for you. How do you keep it while embarking so many new people?
There is something that I love at Publicis. Our mantra, our vision is Viva la différence. We have always been a different company. And Viva la différence is first true with our people. We have a geographical diversity that is huge in 140 countries. But more importantly, in our case, we have an expertise difference. We have data analysts, engineers, consultants, media specialists, creators, producers. I can go on and on. So when you look at the spread of the talent we're having, it's pretty amazing. Now, what we are doing is we spend our time working on our culture. We are really spending time fostering our culture of Viva la Différence locally and globally. We take initiative like the Wishes. We organize seminar. We have done things that I love, like we had 2 years in a row where we delivered double-digit growth. And we decided that because we are doing so well at that time, we will give a bonus this year to people that never get bonus. Yeah. It was a week of salary. So it doesn't change your life, but it's one gift more for Christmas.
And it's a big symbol. Huh?
It's a big symbol. And you know what was so great about that is, of course, the people. We're talking about 60% of our population, roughly 70,000 people at the time. And by the way, 50 basis points on our margin. So it's not a small thing. But of course, it had an impact on the people that got this week. But the biggest impact was on the other. The managers of this company that felt that we are doing the right thing. Yeah. Another example, we did our film for the Wishes with Snoop Dogg, where I am putting a hoodie at the end, and I'm going to show it because this one is for you. Where is the camera? The camera is there, yeah. So that's the hoodie, okay?
Put it on, I want to see it.
You want to? No. You want me to put it now? Okay.
Yes.
That was the hoodie I was wearing during the film. And people loved it. And I said, okay, fine. We were having our roundtable at the end of the year. And I said in the roundtable, there were so many questions about people wanting the hoodie. I said, okay, whoever wants a hoodie, it will be available on Marcel, which is our platform. We'll make that work on Monday. And we are 110,000 people, something like that. Do you know how many demands we had just in 3 days out of 110,000?
112,000 for the families as well.
No. It's one per person. It's one. No. It's not the 80,000 people asked to wear the jersey with the Publicis logo. You're going to tell me it's free? Yes, but still, we were not expecting that. By the way, my CFO is furious because shipping all of this is going to be pretty complicated and pretty expensive. But all of this to tell you that this is what we call culture. When you create badge value, when people feel that they are belonging to something, when they are proud to be part of the company, when they make the effort to go there, because what we're going to ask every one of them is to post a picture with their jersey.
Cool. Me too. After
you too, yeah, for sure. And so we're going to have all of this. And I love that because, again, it comes back to what I was saying at the beginning is 100 years ago, we were small agencies in Montmartre created by Marcel Bustan-Blanchet. Today, we are the global leader. I don't know if it's going to be forever, but who cares? I did another film yesterday where I said, by the way, I prefer to be a challenger than a leader. I am more comfortable being a challenger than a leader.
Because a leader makes you a little bit lazy. Challenger is much better.
And me, what I like is to have an impact, is a bit of provocation. And of course, as a challenger, you can do it more. And feeling that we are embarking everyone at Publicis in this journey is by far my biggest source of satisfaction.
We should at some point come to the end. There is one area that we haven't spoken about that is also one of the aspects I admire you for. We spoke a little bit about it in the business context, when you were in a difficult situation, share price not good, profit warning, you did the deal. But it's more on a personal note. You had a setback in your life when you found out you had cancer.
Yeah.
And what I found amazing is how public you've been about it and also how resilient you've been about it. Yes, it was there. Yes, you had to deal with it, but your journey continued. And tell us a little bit about this moment when it arrived. What did you think? And also, how were you so resilient?
So I've been diagnosed with cancer in, when was that? In March 2022. By the way, I think the most important thing we're going to discuss today is what I'm going to tell to the camera now, is I got a cancer called HPV, papillomavirus, which is something that you get through sexual relationship that 80% of the people will get in their life. And the number of cancer is increasing like this. It takes between 10 to 20 years to mature. But the reason why, and you know that as you know a lot about health, this is a cancer that is growing and one of the only cancer where there is a vaccine. So if you have kids or if you are under 30, if you are a boy or a girl, get vaccinated because hopefully I'm going to save a couple of lives just by having this message. So I got that. And by the way, the day I got it, I didn't know what it was. And so I had to go through surgery, pretty massive. I had to go through chemo and radio. This is why I'm drinking all the time. It's funny because when they started my radio, before starting, the radiograph told me, look, I hope you're not working in the business where you have to talk a lot. So I knew I had to do all of these things and I knew I won't be able to travel. I spend most of my time in the US. I would have to cancel some client meetings. And I find myself in a position where I'm preaching all day long to my clients that they should be transparent. And I felt that I had to do the same. So we start looking and we realized that there were no CEO of a public company that made their cancer public before being either cured or about to die and resign, clearly. But I decided to do a video to explain what I'm telling you.
That video was amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
Thank you. And it was a difficult thing to do, because first of all, family-wise, it's difficult. My mother was still alive at that time, so you can imagine for someone of her age to have that in the press was very tough. And it was also business-wise, it was tough because you show your vulnerability. And in a business that is so competitive and so incarnated, it's not an easy thing. But I did it. The return has been overwhelming. I received thousands of emails. It took like 3 months, 3 people to answer all the emails. And they were all basically saying the same thing. They were saying, look, thank you for doing this. We went through that. We heard those 3 tough words. You have cancer. First, we were scared about our life. But just after, we were scared about our job. We were scared to lose it, not to be promoted, or simply to be a burden for the organization. And I realized that, a lot of people were hiding their treatment. Women that will have a breast surgery during their holidays, prostatitis cancer from men that will get radio in the morning and go to the office. Even worse than that, parents with kids with cancer that won't tell it in their environment. And I said, we have to do something about that. And so we decided to create Working with Cancer, and I will never thank you enough for that. You were one of the early person engaged, which was not an easy thing because it means a strong commitment to erase the cancer in the workplace. The good news is people like you, people like Doug McMillan at Walmart or others, people that have, CEOs that have big companies already had very good policies in place. But the problem in this case was to make people feel that they are safe and supported when they are in the workplace. As we know, by the way, that when we do that, they have 80% chance more to get curated. So we created this pledge. We have roughly 2,000 companies, a bit more, that have signed now. We are covering roughly 50 million people. And because we are at people and we are number one still for the moment in terms of buying media, particularly in the US, we are raising every year 100 million of free media to create awareness. If you ask me, the net of this cancer has been positive. First, because I think that when you go through that and you truly suffer, which has been my case, you enjoy life more. It doesn't mean that I work less, but I enjoy everything I'm doing. Although, you're also scared because it could come back anytime. So I've got some tests on Monday. You never know what is the future, to be honest. But also, and maybe even more, because now my mission is this one. I mean, honestly, even more important than my job. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to use the position I've got and the strengths of Publicis to truly erase the stigma of cancer in the workplace. A bit what happened with pregnancy 20 years ago. I would consider that I could leave my job the day that this would be done.
At the end of each of these podcasts, and we are being watched by many future leaders, I would like you to share, your piece of advice to the leader of tomorrow. What should he or she do or not do to be successful?
First of all, that's more of a generic advice, but do what you really want to do. I mean, I think that the chance that I had is I always been disruptive into what I've done, I did an average business school in France, and instead of taking an average job in France, I decided to become an entrepreneur in Chile that no one was expected. At the moment where I started to be good as an entrepreneur, I decided to come back and do an MBA in INSEAD, which was making no sense either. When I finished INSEAD, at the time everyone was going in financial services or in consulting, I decided to go in advertising. And so I think that try to find a place where not only you're having excitement, but where you're going to be good at. And then for those who one day might find themselves in our position, which I guess this is more of your question, first of all, be careful for what you're looking for. I don't think being the CEO of a public company is an easy job, not a great job. And I'm happy today because it's working, but the price to pay is pretty high. So don't take care of that. Again, it comes back to what we were saying at the beginning. Just listen to your people. Yeah. And in a case like ours, where we are a service business, listen to your clients. If you do those two things well and you're consistent and resilient, it will work.
Very clear. Thank you, Arthur. That was very amazing and very inspiring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.